Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar titled Trend Watch, Uncovering Shifting Traveller Plans, Values and Influences on Booking with Vrbo, Key Data and InterHome in partnership with Expedia Group. So I'm Priya, I'm going to be moderating this session today. I'm the editor of Short Term Rentals, which is a leading B2B platform for short-term rental news, content and insights. Before we begin today's session, here's a quick video of our sponsor today, Expedia Group. Okay, so here's just a quick overview of today's session. So we will have 45 to 50 minutes of panel discussion with our speakers, with time at the end for an audience Q&A. So please drop any questions or thoughts that you might have in the chat box below. All links and speaker information will also be available there. So please do refer there for any further details on the topics that we will touch on today. We will also be dropping a poll in there later, so please do get involved. A recording of this webinar will also be sent to you within 24 hours via your email that you signed up with. Okay, so on to the topic of kind of shifting traveller plans and behaviours. We ran a poll with our short-term rentals audience asking what is the most important factor for guests when it comes to booking a stay in 2025. And what you can see is that 55% selected reviews and trust, with only 3% selecting location and 36% saying flexibility. This really shows that we're seeing a shift in the travel industry, showing that while price matters to a degree, trust and guest confidence are now leading the way when it comes to guest stays, with flexibility not far behind. And this is what we're going to be jumping into today's session, and everything that we will be exploring today, from guest behaviours, booking patterns, loyalty and social media, is grounded in the latest insights from Expedia Group's 2025 Traveller Value Index. So with that in mind, let's get started with introducing our panelists for today. I'm going to allow each of our speakers to briefly introduce themselves, starting left to right, as you can see on screen. So Jurriaan, if we start with you, welcome, Jurriaan.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Jurriaan. I'm the Director of Vacation Rental Partnerships for our SMB teams in EMEA with Expedia Group. And of course, Vrbo is our primary brand focused on VR.
Great, thank you. And Melanie, if we go on to you next.
Sure, thank you. I lead the data analytics and insights team at Key Data. So we track a lot of trends in the industry, work with property managers, DMOs, and enterprise level customers and partners around the world. So excited to be here to share some of those trends and data points we're seeing today.
Great, thanks, Melanie. And Sylvia, last but not least, welcome.
Yes, nice to meet you all. Sylvia, I'm co-CEO of InterHome, with a specific role in terms of digitization and guest experience, and therefore very happy to be here and share our insights from the vacation rental market.
Great, thanks all. So let's jump into it. So the latest data from Vrbo is showing us just how travel demand is kind of shaping up in 2025. And according to the data, 88% of travellers are planning leisure trips, with 68% are looking internationally. The data also shows that we're seeing more blended travel, like flexcations or bleisure, and an average of almost 3 trips per traveller this year. So I'm interested to know, Jurriaan, what headline trends are you seeing from Vrbo that show how travel intent has shifted over the past year?
Yeah, sure. I think maybe first by means of introduction on our 2025 Traveller Value Index. That's based on market research with a company that we partner with, which is Wakefield Research. The last time we ran this was in 2022, with the results being published in 23. And for 2025, it was based on 11,000 respondents across 11 global markets. And mostly the questions were the same as a few years ago. So it allows us to kind of see those shifting trends. And yeah, as you just said, right? The good news is that the appetite for travel is high. You mentioned the stat, 88% of consumers are planning to take a leisure trip in the next 12 months, and international travel being a big part of that. That is a 19% increase versus 2022 in terms of international travel intent. And then consumers based in China, UK, and Germany lead on that front, ranging from 87 to 72%. And then also what we're seeing is, so total travel budget is increasing, but travelers are planning to travel more frequently, right? So trip frequency is increasing to 2.88 trips on average. And well, in EMEA, our Vrbo brand tend to resonate with travelers seeking their big annual trip. But what we want to crack is being also the go-to place for smaller, shorter trips as well. So cross-sell between our family of brands, for example, Expedia, can really help there to drive that demand for shorter trips as well. But historically, I think we've got those high-quality travelers, and we obviously want to continue to incentivize them to book their big annual trips. And we've got weekly and monthly discounts available in the store and for our partners to offer to the travelers. And those are some key things that we'll continue to focus on.
Thank you, Jurriaan. And Melanie, coming to you here, from a key data perspective, what kind of data are you seeing around this flexications and the rise that we're seeing in trip frequency as well?
Yeah, and so just so the audience knows, we track direct vacation rental data. So we work with property managers and PMSs around the world. So we're pulling in that source of truth data. We have seen shortening stay lengths again this year. So down, maybe like 1/10 of a day from where we were at last year, which is half a day before, shorter than where we were pre-pandemic. So not huge shifts, but still a noticeable kind of decline in stay lengths. What that's telling me is that people are traveling more often. So to Jurriaan's point, they're still taking that 7-day beach vacation, booking with Vrbo maybe one time a year. But other weekends, they're doing a long weekend. They're driving somewhere with their family or, just a couple or just a few friends. So they're traveling more frequently and staying for shorter stays when they do.
Interesting. And is that something that you have noticed change maybe over the past year, or how have you kind of viewed that trend evolving?
It's definitely changed in our data post-pandemic and has just kind of continued to escalate, I think, a little bit. So, continuing to see shorter stays. One interesting thing that factored into this kind of in the immediate years after the pandemic, especially in some like US leisure markets, was people traveling more during the off season too. And so they weren't just doing that week-long summer trip. Suddenly they were going, to the Colorado mountains for 3 nights in May, which is not traditionally a peak season. It's called the mud season out here because all the snow's melting. And we've continued, to see those shorter trips, but less demand during those off-peak seasons. So the situation just really continues to evolve in a lot of markets.
Interesting. Thank you, Melanie. And Sylvia, bringing you in here, at InterHome, are you noticing any changes in trip lengths or booking lead times from your guests? And how are you kind of responding to that?
Yeah, indeed, I can second what has been said already. We see a decrease in the time spent on vacation, but only slightly, right? It's something like going down from 7 days to 6.5, something like this. That's very interesting. The other part is specifically this year, we see a great trend back to last minute bookings, specifically for the summer now. For the winter, that's more of a problem because the portfolio, well, actually the supply is not as strong because we're seeing less and less, snow in some regions. So that means there you have to take yourself quite early on, and that's what guests do. So for winter holidays, it's rather a longer lead time for bookings, whereas for summer, it's really last minute. For us, look, destinations are the same as we always see that are popular, maybe with the one exception of Croatia at the moment, which has gone up in prices quite some and is not anymore to the expectations of guests, of some of our guests. So there, I guess we will see some shifts in the coming months and years. Yeah, other than that, I would say it's really a super interesting market, and you have tapped on the topic of leisure and blended travel in general. And while it is hard to actually really track this, what people do on their vacation, right? We don't want to intervene with their privacy on the holiday. However, what is interesting, I find, is when we look at the categories that are chosen at InterHome, when people are looking for objects, the second biggest category is Wi-Fi. I mean, you would assume that people just consider this a standard, but I would say if you are precisely looking for it, it's probably not just for your own leisure, but it could in many cases also mean that you need to connect for work. That would be a possible interpretation. And of course, how we then react to this is with diverse pricing initiatives to actually respond to these needs of last minute versus very long in advance bookings. And yes, we are working on our properties together with our owners to actually bring up the standards that are required by the guests. But I guess during this panel, we'll still tap on this a bit further.
Definitely. Thank you, Sylvia. And one thing that kind of stood out to me in the new Traveller Value Index is that 58% of consumers are showing as slightly more price conscious, but showing equal weight to trust and positive reviews. We're also seeing an emergence of things like family connections, unique experiences, and even environmental concerns are growing in importance. So we're seeing a lot of value, or the theme of values, taking play in traveller plans and booking behaviour. So I'm interested to know a little bit about what values are driving your guests' booking decisions today, and has anything maybe surprised you? Sylvia, if you want to lead with this one.
Yeah, I find it very interesting how you started with how important reviews are. So when we are looking at our data, we know that there's basically three things that really make up the decision process, right? Other than maybe destination. Once all those like basic things are sorted, then it's all about the pictures, the price, and the reviews. And our data showed that the jump from when there is 0 reviews on an object, which in a smaller environment like InterHome still happens when an object is new to the platform, in comparison to just 1 review, is extremely huge. So maybe that seems obvious, but it showed us, or it was surprising how big the difference is once you have just 1 review. So that means that that our users or guests really actively are looking for this data point. Very important. And then, of course, in our environment, we are a managed service provider with our offering. And that is something that we see has value for our guests, because there they know that there is a standard service that they can expect, right? When there is a problem on spot, it's going to be solved. It's really going to be solved. So of course we see those guests for which it is really important, this aspect.
Definitely. And are you seeing something similar in guest feedback as well?
Yes, I mean, gosh, an unhappy guest. I think what we see a lot is when people have problems, they seem to be a lot focused on those problems. And it is so helpful to then really have a team on spot or in our service centers that can solve this problem. And every time I personally, because sometimes it happens that the guest comes up to me as well, and then has their concerns, etc. And finally, when you talk to people and you find out that actually problems have been solved, that is a huge relief. So within like 2 hours, etc., we find a new property for them. For example, if something is broken, or last minute we find there's whatever else problem, or after trip, you know, they consider something was not as expected, then we really are there and solve it. And I find in the end, yeah, that's what you need to bring to the guest.
Definitely. And Melanie, just looping you in here, from a data perspective, are you seeing any kind of generational differences maybe in traveller priorities when it comes to values? So maybe that's Gen Z or families. Where are you seeing that in a data perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we really don't track our guest demographics. A lot of property managers don't. Would love to see that start. You know, key demographic trends we've been keeping an eye on over the last, you know, few months or so. We've seen you know, an improvement or kind of more luxury and properties doing better on a year-over-year basis. And conversely, our, you know, budget, like the $200 a night rentals, are faring a little bit worse with lower year-over-year revenue. And then we also, you know, always notice differences in like the size of properties people are booking. So, you know, it's a little different this year, but we've seen some pretty big declines in kind of the large family homes in the last couple of years, at least when compared to immediately like post-pandemic. And so again, you know, budget struggling a little bit more than the luxury end right now. And group travel, at least for a lot of our properties, probably not quite where it was in like 21 and 22 when everybody was getting their large family reunion together for the first time in a couple of years. So definitely seeing some shifts there. You know, I think another interesting thing that we continue to see pan out is one destination being really hot for one season. And then, you know, struggling a little bit more the next. And so sometimes that's event driven, but I think also social media continues to play, you know, a huge part in this, especially with those young Gen Z travelers. And so they're seeing all their friends go to this one destination and they want to do that too. So we are again seeing some pretty big year-over-year shifts in those super hot social media trends.
Definitely. And Jurriaan, just coming to you here, are there any values in particular which stood out to you in the index data, or anything that surprised you maybe?
Yeah, well, I think earlier there was some good talk around kind of these flexcations, right, from Sylvia. We're seeing a rise of that, flexcations and leisure travel. But in terms of values, which actually I found interesting and to me unsurprising when we did the research, is that price consciousness is very much up. So for 58% of the respondents, that was a big consideration for travel, whereas the beginning of the poll, it seemed to under-index. So definitely something to be aware of. To me, it was no surprise, particularly given kind of the delicate macroeconomic environment currently around the world. And with that, right, discounting can be critical to capture travel demand. So we've just launched our new promotion suite globally, allowing partners to configure early booking and last-minute discounts and mobile and member-only discounts rolling out very soon this summer. And this allows our partners to target specific traveler audiences at the right time and with the right offers. So that's kind of one, price consciousness. And then also something that was mentioned earlier, trust and reviews. They now carry equal weight, right? Is what we saw in the study. And for us, our Premier Host program is a great example of how we offer travelers trust signals for a host who consistently deliver that exceptional quality experience. And then reviews are very critical in the traveler decision-making process. So we really double down on that. It carries a big weight within the sort order for partners and in terms of visibility. And it's even more important for kind of the younger demographic who they're willing to pay more for a property that offers that excellent guest experience. And then I would say the third thing is a big motivator for travelers currently is traveling with family and friends or visiting family and friends. And I think the study said for 49% of the travelers, that's the reason why they're taking a trip. This has remained steady. Now, for Vrbo and for our kind of our family, our group of brands, this is part of our DNA. So not just for Vrbo, but across also brand Expedia, which also offers vacation rental inventory. So yeah, I think we're well primed to target that segment of the market as well.
Definitely, and something you touched on there as well was the impacts of maybe promotions or things like loyalty programs, perhaps driving those value conscious or price conscious guests. So, is something like early or last minute booking discounts something that you're seeing as well, having a strong impact on guest behavior?
Yeah, for sure. I think someone mentioned it earlier. The booking windows are shrinking a little bit, right? So while we still have early bookers, we are seeing a shift to last minute travel as well. And previously, unfortunately, we didn't have those capabilities. We had them for our hotel partners, but not for our vacation rental partners. But that's something that we recently rolled out for all of our platform partners. So those are the partners who manage their listing on our platform directly. And then this summer, we're already in the process of testing that with some of our connectivity providers and make that available at scale over time to our connected partners as well. And partners are jumping on this, knowing that the windows have been shrinking. And yeah, travelers really are looking for those last minute deals as well as those early booking incentives as well, because while they still intend to travel more, right, they are very budget conscious at the moment as well.
Interesting. And Melanie, just looping you in here. So, are there any notable changes that in lead times and booking windows, like Jurriaan mentioned, that you're seeing from the data?
Yeah, definitely. So over the last couple of months, we've seen like a 6% decline in lead time, which is pretty significant on a year-over-year basis. I pulled some numbers for us. So year to date, thus far, about 30% or 38% of US guests have booked 14 days or less in advance. And so a massive amount of that demand is really coming in at the last minute. It reminds me a little bit, especially in the US, of kind of what was happening kind of immediately post-pandemic. And so people not feeling super certain at that kind of 30 to 60 day booking window. At that point, a lot of people are saying, well, let's wait and see what happens and book at the last minute if things are looking good. So we've definitely seen that shift. It's tough for a lot of our property managers, right, who are used to having that calendar fill up a little bit further in advance, and are now really relying on those last minute bookings, which is a little stressful because if your price is not correct at that 2 week out window, you're just not going to get booked. I think our guests are getting smarter too. They know that a lot of those last minute discounts are coming. And then with occupancy rates lower than they have been the last couple of years, they also know they can wait, get a good deal, and still get a good rental property. And so we continue to encourage people to just start adjusting those prices a little bit further out. Cool to see, Jurriaan, that you guys are now supporting some of those booking window discounts in your platform as well. So that'll be super helpful for people as they continue to monitor those changing lead times.
Definitely. And Sylvia, do you have anything to add there kind of on the shift that we're seeing towards guests driving more towards those short breaks, longer stays, and frequent returns when it comes to those booking windows as well?
Yeah, well, InterHome is operating in stays that are usually more than 3 nights because we are active in the rural areas, right? And we are very much in the season and the high seasons. We book out rather for a week or 2 than for this typical weekend stay, maybe that some others might see. So I would say we're probably not seeing the full range of data from our side, but we still see a decline in the time of stay. So that's visible, and also to this whole flexibility topic that Melanie touched upon. We see this being a continuous trend. This has been now really arrived in the heads of everyone there is no other way around than having that flexibility, offering our guests the possibility to book in advance, but then still change plans. I think this is just a requirement you cannot do without anymore. That's what we are seeing.
Interesting. And just shifting gears slightly here. So one thing that we are seeing as well with the data is that influence is playing a really big role on guest behavior. So 61% of travelers reported that they used social media for travel inspiration. So with 73% saying that they have booked based on influencer content. So I think it's interesting to note that we're seeing an influx of kind of travel related social media content, and that really is kind of having an impact on booking behaviors and the way our guests are operating. So Sylvia, how are you encouraging reviews and repeat stays to build trust with your guests, or maybe and even digitally kind of boosting those relationships?
Yeah, I would like to say something that might be surprising, and specifically for my role being into digital, but sometimes let's get back to the ground. This is a people's business. And InterHome has a lot of strengths with people on site, actually, in comparison maybe to others. And therefore, what we see, but then it's obviously also biased because that's what we see, is that people appreciate these contacts, these local contacts that can advise, that can help, that are friendly on your arrival, that are friendly on your departure, and anything you might need in between, and any advice. So I would say it's been a huge part for us of recurring guests, just relationships, right? And we have seen flowers being delivered to our staff on the ground, and I think this is a fantastic sign of trust. However, of course, you have to play it digitally as well, and we encourage, of course, reviews. We also encourage to rebook, and we do this. This is also maybe a little side note. We encourage this actually with printed postcards. So we call them the Welcome Back Home postcards. So 3 days after you return from your holidays, you get something in your letterbox, actually printed on paper, that says, well, I hope you've enjoyed your vacation there. Now's the time to book for next year, and you get a little discount. And this has turned out to be quite an interesting acquisition channel, to be honest, or acquisition in that respect. It's a booking acquisition, but not user acquisition channel. So I would encourage, even in this digital world where everyone is battling on social media, on search engines, and soon to be, or actually, I guess it's only a question of weeks and months now, that we see the larger percentage booking and searching via AI. But then there is still, your offline life, and if you want to stick out, I guess, make an impression to your guests, it's also an option to be present in the offline world.
Yeah, definitely. It's easy to get swept up in the social media elements, but it's interesting to hear those points there. Jurriaan, just coming to you here, how is Expedia Group leveraging kind of social media and the influx of influencer trends across Vrbo to support host visibility and bookings as well?
Yeah, of course. You actually mentioned a good stat, and I think someone in the chat wanted us to repeat it. You said 61% of travelers use social media for trip inspiration. That was actually up from 35% from the last time we did that study. So it's a tremendous opportunity. And then 73% of consumers overall, and 84% of consumers under 40 have booked based on an influencer recommendation. So inspiration, 61%, and actually a larger chunk of that even booking through an influencer recommendation. Now, not necessarily on Vrbo just yet, but we launched something very cool, which is called Travel Shops, which is essentially a creator-curated shop. It's available on Expedia. It was launched on Expedia last year, and we've seen really good engagement with that. We have VR inventory on Expedia, so it helps get a bit of visibility to the sector there. And then in addition to that, we also launched something called trip matching, which essentially allows travelers to send a direct message to Expedia on Instagram. And through the power of AI, we match landmarks, points of interest to deliver a curated travel itinerary based on that reel. So those are some really cool innovations that we're jumping on. And then in addition to that, when you think about social influencing, we use our tentpole campaigns to activate our influencer marketing engine where it makes sense. So for example, we hosted dozens of influencers at vacation rentals as part of our Vacation Rentals of the Year campaign, which is annual.
Interesting. And where are you kind of seeing that take off in the future? Because obviously this is something that we're seeing emerge probably in the last couple of years, but probably higher now. So where are you seeing that, and what kind of, how would you recommend people adapt to that visibility when it comes to visibility and bookings?
Yeah, well, clearly, currently the market is shifting more to kind of those social experiences and immersive experiences. So I think it's important that you're there. What we see a lot in lodging in general is that lodging partners are taking advantage of these opportunities, and they're creating these Instagrammable moments, if you will, right? Where within the property you have these amazing kind of little nooks where travelers can take photos and share those with their network. So I want to, encourage people to make sure that you take advantage of those trends, right? And get the most visibility from your property.
Definitely. And Melanie, just looping you in here, what are the, would you say, most influential, say, booking touch points that you're seeing in the data? So are OTAs, loyalty programs, social channels kind of leading the way?
Yeah, we don't track, exact touch points. It is interesting. We do track kind of how much reservation activity is coming through each of the OTAs. And so it's been interesting to see that shift. We continue to see an increase in Airbnb reservations in the US. Sorry, Jurriaan, for saying that in front of everything. I think, again, you touched on this at the beginning, that difference in traveler profiles across the OTAs continues to be really interesting. And I think, Airbnb continues to get those shorter stays booked by younger people. On the property manager side of things, we encourage people to, do exactly what Jurriaan was recommending, and making sure that your property's set up with especially your big, kind of keystone properties, set up to enable people to take those pictures. I'd also say make sure you're getting tagged in them. If it's your vacation rental management company has their own account, which they should, or a hashtag or some way to make sure that when their friends are seeing those Instagrammable moments, that they know that their friends stayed with you, or the influencer stayed with you as well. We also, I mentioned this earlier, continue to see this really play out at a market level. And so some of these destinations will be really hot for a season when everybody on Instagram or TikTok is traveling there, and then not as hot the next couple of years. I think that's really driven places like Miami or some of the national parks in the US. Everybody in the US right now is doing their Euro summer. That trend has stuck around for a few years now. And so again, at that destination level, we're seeing places be super popular one season and then a little quieter the next. Also, raising some concerns about over tourism and crowding in a lot of these destinations that are just not set up to handle them as well.
Definitely. Thanks, Melanie. Some really, really important points there. Before we move on to kind of talking a little bit about how operators can adapt to these trends that we've been discussing, let's have a little look at what our audience thinks and just involve them a little bit more here. So I'd like to ask you all, how are guest expectations changing your business strategy in 2025? There'll be a poll just dropped in the chat, so feel free to answer that. But while the results come in, let's turn to our speakers and hear how they're seeing businesses respond on the ground. So Sylvia, coming to you here, what kind of operational or operations or strategies has InterHome adopted to respond to evolving guest behaviours and changes that we've talked about?
Yeah, see, we're actually celebrating our 60 years anniversary this year as InterHome, and we have seen a lot of travel trends changing over these long years, and some of them I haven't even been born. So, and however, within the company, you still see some of the relicts of former times as well, and lots of our job is also to get processes in line that, you know, at some parts are still maybe 20 years old, and other parts they're already super modern, etc. And I think when it comes to the guest behavior, if you want to put it into one, what we are doing at the moment, it is really to get a streamlined guest experience out of one process. And you might say, you know, it's specifically coming from the digital environment where companies have seen the light in a pure digital age. This is a challenge that other providers are facing, I guess, and we have come a far way to get this as a streamlined one guest experience, but some of our challenges are still in that area. Yeah.
And Melanie, from a kind of data perspective, what strategies do you think would prove most effective maybe in today's market based on what we're seeing?
I think the flexibility piece is huge. So a lot of property managers got pretty strict on cancellation policies there for a little bit. When, you know, occupancy rates were high and it was pretty easy to get a guest reservation no matter what your policies were. And so I think it's a great time to start looking at those more flexible cancellation policies again. You know, with plenty of restrictions in place that you're not having somebody cancel a massive 2-week long rental 24 hours ahead of arrival, right? So there's some strategy to be done there. And then, you know, the other point I want to make here is that stay length restriction. So as we see shorter stays and people are looking for flexibility, it's a great time to make sure that you don't have a blanket 7-night stay length restriction on all of your properties, especially those smaller ones all year, because you're probably going to be missing out on some of those 5-day stays. You know, it could introduce some challenges of gap nights. So what are you going to do with this random Wednesday or Thursday night that's open? And how are you going to get that booked if it's kind of awkwardly between other stays? But I think it's a really great time for managers to look at those cancellation and stay length strategies, to consider being a little more flexible in a way that makes sense for your market and for your inventory type as well. So again, that's going to vary. You know, you may want to be more restrictive on a 7-bedroom house and less on a 1-bedroom apartment, and then pay attention to seasonality in your destination as well. So those are two of the big flexibility things we're keeping an eye on right now.
Definitely interesting. Thank you, Melanie. And we are seeing in the poll results that 24% of our listeners agree that offering more flexible policies and pricing is an important adaptation to changing their business strategies in 2025. But on top, we're seeing 35% saying that they are investing more in trust and reviews and reputation. So I'd be interested to bring this to our panel and see their thoughts on that. So Jurriaan, I see you nodding your head there. Is there anything in that's you think has stood out, or you think is a good response to the changes we're seeing?
Yeah, well, I think everything that the other panelists just said, plus what the audience thinks, are great things. I agree with those. Maybe just to add, and funny enough, it's the basics that can help property managers also meet traveler expectations. We have this saying within Expedia, which is be brilliant at the basics. And some of the data from this study also help prove that that is what travelers are looking for. So think about things like strong Wi-Fi and air conditioning and cleanliness. Those are things that are rising to the top, and not necessarily kind of the sexy amenities like, I don't know, game rooms or hot tubs. Travelers just want reliable conveniences. And then on top of that, everything that was mentioned, right? Cater to the season, to the type of traveler that you're trying to attract, offering those flexible policies, reduced length of stay settings, make sure that you launch deals that cater to your needs as well. If you have last minute calendar availability or want to incentivize those further out stays. And then there's also a large portion of travelers that value loyalty, right? Loyalty points. We have our own loyalty program, and we see that over 80% of travelers are looking to accumulate or gain points. So they're looking for that value again. And well, starting this summer, we'll be launching the members only deals that partners can offer as well to the traveler.
And are there any other ways that Vrbo is kind of helping hosts stay competitive and aligned with what we're seeing travelers want in 2025? I know you mentioned the loyalty program, but any points we've touched on?
Yeah, definitely. We help partners in various ways, I would say. We already spoke about our promotion suite, obviously. Now, for our platform partners, we also just rolled out rate automation. So this leverages AI to help partners with dynamic pricing, which helps fill calendars and grow conversion, while still staying in control of their pricing strategy. As far as keeping up with trends, well, this very traveler value index that we're discussing today is a good example. We lean heavily into research every year because we know those insights matter to our partners and their business. And we communicate those insights and share with partners in various ways, right? From partner marketing emails to webinars. We speak at industry events, and we have our account management team as well, part of which I lead here in EMEA. And our team tries to coach the partners on how to be successful within our marketplace. So those are just some examples, right? But that's really the job of our supplier organization, is making sure that partners are equipped with the right information and the right tools to be successful in their business, and as it makes sense for them.
Definitely. Thank you, Jurriaan. And kind of looking forward, we're seeing that from the data that demand is growing, like we touched on, for personalization, content-driven discovery, sustainability, and lots of other things. So I am interested to know from each of you, what one or two trends do you expect will really shape traveler behavior the most over the next year? Sylvia, if we start with you here.
Oh. Well, yeah, I guess, of course, I cannot say that AI will not shape traveler behavior. I mean, I'm actually would be fantastic to see someone here who sees the search data, right? And I'm actually curious to see how the searches changes already for vacation rental, because I'm sure people look differently already at vacation rental. I've heard that's not something that, you know, an InterHome can see that much yet, but I've heard that the whole search behavior has changed, and people are no longer just sticking to the categories that are given to them and the usual stuff that they have been trained via search engines to look for, but they are getting more creative and really expressing their own needs much more. So I think this is what we will see, and there will be new ways of being more explorative in your research for vacation rental. Another thing that hasn't been mentioned today, and so I take the opportunity to mention it here now. We said group travel, right? We said the how do we say, like the pleasure workation type of traveling. We also mentioned family. One thing that we see that's also on the rise, and I guess this will not stop yet, is actually traveling with pets, traveling with dogs. And this is something that we, how to say, consult our owners also too, that this is a huge profitability gain if you are allowing for pets. And it's also a very interesting guest group. So maybe just finishing for that.
Interesting. And are you noticing that becoming a priority for guests? I know it would be a priority for me, so interested to see how that
maybe AI makes it possible that in the future dogs can somehow, you know, express themselves in whatever ways and help us choose the right vacation rental. Who knows? That would be something very creative.
Thank you, Sylvia. And Melanie, to you, what one or two trends do you expect should be shaping traveller behaviour the most over the next year?
Yeah, Sylvia, I'm definitely traveling with my dog. So let us know. She may give you a call once she figures out how to speak with AI. Um, We're paying really close attention to drive to vacation. That is always, especially in the US, like a major source of demand. So fewer people get on an airplane and go on their vacations. They tend to pack up the minivan and bring their dog and drive to their summer vacations. Obviously, there are exceptions like Hawaii. You kind of got to get on a plane unless you already live there, and some other island destinations are just big international. Um, Destinations as well. The other one is considerably less sexy, but we're seeing it play out a lot in the US on the OTAs here. But all-inclusive pricing, I think, is going to be a big hurdle for a lot of property managers to adapt to. And so, Vrbo and Airbnb now including their cleaning and service fees in that rent and just saying, here's your total price for the stay. We have seen a lot of pushback from guests over the last few years of like, why are you charging me a cleaning fee and also leaving me a list of instructions upon checkout? Or why did I think this was going to be $50 a night and suddenly it's $75 a night once all the fees are included. And so the OTA is kind of leading the way there. In the US, I'd say, European property managers have been doing that for a while, but I think it'll take some adjustment for property managers to manage that rate across their platforms and make sure that on their direct booking sites, they're responding to that trend as well.
Definitely interesting. Thank you, Melanie, for that. And obviously, on to you, Jurriaan. What one or two trends do you expect?
Yeah, definitely AI, something to watch. We're watching the space very closely, but not just watching. We're actively embedding AI into various parts of the organization. We strongly believe AI can help, for example, in servicing. I also spoke to dynamic pricing, for example. We use it in various of our algorithms. But the human touch is still necessary in many areas. And I'll give you an example of a failure with AI that we tested. We used AI to help select the hero images for properties, and it didn't work that well yet. So the AI skewed towards selecting beachfront imagery. And while that works well for hotels, vacation rental travelers, as you can imagine, they want hero images of the house and the layout and the features they're booking. So that was kind of a learning we had, but we need to keep experimenting with it and get better at this. And then another trend we'll stay close to is the use of influencers that we spoke about earlier as part of our marketing strategy, which is something that our brand Expedia has been actively doing. We've been doing some of it on the vacation rental side, like I mentioned with vacation rentals of the year, but we'll likely do more of that, right, in the future as well. And then if I may, a quick third, sustainability. I think it's not new, but we know the younger demographic really values sustainable travel. And we released our sustainability amenities a couple of years ago. I think as of last quarter, we had already captured and posted over 1.1 million sustainable amenities for our properties on the site, and that will continue to grow. It's something to stay on top of.
Definitely, we're seeing a lot of the importance of sustainability and a lot of the rise in AI, especially. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how things play out over the next year. But thank you all so much for all of your insights today. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground here. So thank you so much. I hope this session was useful to you all, and thank you for joining. I just have a few closing points to run through, but again, thank you to our panelists and to Expedia Group.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. So just to wrap up, here is our next webinar on the 8th of July, all on how to maximize revenues based on effective pricing strategies. So please feel free to sign up if you haven't already. And just to note that our short-term rental summit is now live on Eventbrite, and information on the details of the event is live on our website. So please do take a look and grab a ticket and come along. I would love to see you all there. And if you are interested in working with us, then please reach out to our head of growth of short-term rentals, whose contact information is on screen now. And just another final thank you to our listeners and obviously to our fantastic panel. Please enjoy this closing video as we wrap up.